Mr. Rasmussen here. This is our last lesson for the cardiovascular system, and in this lesson we just want to look at a few cardiovascular diseases that we may run into. So some of these you may be familiar with in health class, so I'm not going to go into them a lot, but I just want to make you familiar with them. So these are some cardiovascular diseases. The first one is valvular heart disease, and this one I put in here because it's not very common, but maybe you've heard about somebody who has a valve disease or had to have a valve replaced or has something called a leaky valve, and those all fit into these valvular heart diseases. And what happens is, so if we take a look here, we have our valves here. We have tricuspid and bicuspid valve, or mitral valve sometimes it's called. And then we have these semilunar valves here. But what happens in these valvular heart diseases is these valves don't close properly. So usually they need to slam shut pretty tight to keep blood from moving where it doesn't want to move. So for instance, it's very important that this valve closes so that when the left ventricle contracts down here, the blood doesn't push back up into the atria. So if we have that, if we have the left ventricle contracting and blood flowing back up into these atria, we have what's called a leaky valve or valvular heart disease. And this could happen with any of these valves. They could become leaky. And this is what happens when valves do not function properly. And sometimes it happens because of a birth defect. Some people can have valvular heart disease from birth. And then sometimes it can happen from inflammation. One of the ones that you can get is from sometimes if you have untreated strep throat, if you have untreated streptococcus, it can cause inflammation of the heart, and it will actually cause some of these valves to not function properly because of the heart increases in size and gets that inflammation. So one of the ways that they can treat this is you can have valves replaced, you can have artificial valves put in, you can have pig valves put in, so other animal component valves. So that's what valvular heart disease is. Okay, a big disease, and that sort of snowballs into a bunch of other diseases, is this arteriosclerosis, and you've heard about this a lot in health class. But the arteriosclerosis is this thickening of the arteries, and it's caused by plaques that build up in the arteries. And these plaques are actually caused by a couple interesting ways. One, they're caused by, so these arteriosclerosis is caused by plaque buildup, but it's caused mainly because of these two high levels. So when your blood has high lipid components and high cholesterol components, what happens is that causes white blood cells to actually try to get rid of these. So these white blood cells go around and they try to Pac-Man up. I'll draw Pac-Man up here for fun. So these white blood cells go around and they do phagocytosis, and they try to eat up these lipids. And what happens is they become filled with these lipids, and these white blood cells become stuck together. They coagulate together. And then because of that, we have this huge buildup of cells, lipids, calcium, cellular debris from these cells that are there, and we get this sort of buildup of plaque, and then we can get this fibrous cap that builds up around them, causing these plaques. That's these down here where you see macrophages transformed into foam cells. Those foam cells are the lipids. So we get that, and that causes these plaques, and these plaques can cause thickening of arteries and stuff like that, and can cause restricted blood flow. And these plaques can actually break free and move to different places, and that's when we have problems. Okay, snowballing off of that is coronary artery disease. And a coronary artery is an artery that supplies blood to the heart. So in your heart, you have these coronary arteries down here. And these coronary arteries can become blocked, right? So you can have partial or complete blockage of a coronary artery. And that's going to cause coronary artery disease, and a lot of things that happen from that caused by this plaque here. And the main thing that happens is you get pain in the chest. So angina, it's called, so pain in the chest, or chest pain. Okay, a couple ways that we can relieve this. So if you have coronary artery disease, some of the things we do for you, or some of the things that can be done, is what's called an angioplasty. And this is where a small microscopic balloon is threaded through your veins. So here's the end of the balloon here, and here's the plaque down here. And that balloon is threaded into the area where this plaque is, and then as the balloon is threaded in, it's inflated, and that crushes the plaque or pushes the plaque off to the side, allowing blood to flow through again. That's an angioplasty. Another thing we can do to help relieve coronary artery disease is a coronary artery bypass. And you hear about people who have double bypasses or triple bypasses, and that's where they actually are going to bypass the blockage. So down here, here's your heart, and here's a coronary artery, and there's where the blockage is. So down here we have an artery that's blocked. Well, because of that, we can put a bypass in, which will redirect the flow of blood around the blockage to the area of the heart, so that this area of the heart is not blocked off. So that's bypass surgery. They'll take veins from different parts of your body, or they'll take other animal component veins and do coronary artery bypass. So if you've heard of somebody that's had that happen, pretty invasive. They have to cut through the ribs in order to get to the heart. It's pretty invasive surgery. Okay, if these are untreated, if you don't do those things, you'll lead to what's called a myocardial infarction, and this is your heart attack, and this is those complete blockage of coronary circulation, so complete blockage of these arteries in the heart, and this actually cause tissue death. So it'll cause muscle tissue death. So right here's our blockage here, and down here we have dead heart tissue, which is severe and very quick and could cause death. The other problem is sometimes we can have blockages of smaller arteries over here, so some of these minor ones, and it's not going to cause the major tissue death that'll cause a heart attack, but it will cause scar tissue to build up in that muscle, and that scar tissue is going to build up and make it very difficult for the heart to work properly, and that buildup of scar tissue can be very dangerous to your heart. So that's a myocardial infarction or heart attack. A stroke. A stroke is blockage of blood supply to the brain. You can have a blockage in which we have death, just like we did in the heart attack. So that's where you have blockage. Or the other problem you can have is this hemorrhagic stroke, and that's where the blood vessel actually ruptures because of the blockage. So the blood vessel will rupture, and that'll cause leakage of blood throughout the brain. So pretty severe thing here. Once again, strokes, depending upon where they happen, one of the common signs of strokes are loss of muscle function, so paralysis on the side of the face. Slurring of speech is another possible stroke thing. Okay, and the last one I want to talk about very quickly is this ventricular septal defect. And so we have the septum right here, and we learned about that in video number 1, the septum. And the septum divides these part of the heart. It divides the two atrium and it divides the two ventricles. But in a ventricular septal defect, this septum does not fully form. So blood is free to rush over from the left ventricle into the right ventricle, and usually it rushes this way because this ventricle pumps much more strongly. There's more pressure here. So that causes the blood to rush into there, and this can actually cause heart enlargement. So it can cause the heart to become enlarged heart, which is quite dangerous. So those are the major problems I want you to look at, the major cardiovascular diseases that I want you to know about. So if you have any questions, class, feel free to ask me. My phone's ringing, so I better get running. But have a good day.